The fun thing is, I like coffee and I like geography. So, what mad person decided to put them together? Well, Kate did, of course. I'm Sean Ferry from Track Culture, and you're listening to the Coffee and Geography podcast. Grab yourself a brew, enjoy the listen, and just have a generally good time. And if you don't, try again. Thanks very much.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Coffee and Geography podcast. And this is a conversation actually that's spurned from, I wouldn't say bribery. Unless, I don't know Nava if you want to call it bribery, but Nava contacted me with regards to some material that I produced and that she wanted to share it, which is fantastic, about the project and the thing that she's doing, which is amazing. We'll talk about. And I said, you know me, folks, I love sharing stuff, but I said I will on one condition.
No, that's not how it went.
Okay, I'm doing myself a disservice, but Nava Khorram Ahmad, what actually happened then?
I reached out to you because you have some fantastic graphics and drawings, and I wanted to use one of them in curriculum that we're creating about climate change. And we jumped on a call. You were so gracious to allow us, to use it in what we're doing. And then it was just a kind invitation. You said, I also have a podcast if you are interested. And I've never been on a podcast before. And you also were so lovely to chat to. So I thought, let's do it.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Perhaps in my own mind, I feel like I'm pushy. I don't know. Oh, that's very kind. Okay, right. I feel soothed now. Right.
Yes,
so, folks, Nava is the executive director of the Climate Education Centre, a newly established non-profit creating holistic, action-orientated climate education for youth around the globe. She is a hodgepodge of cultures and places, half Persian, half white American. She grew up in the Mariana Islands and moved to Czechia at the age of 15. This is amazing. She's been living in Latvia for the last 5 years, where she can be most often found under a heated blanket, battling eldest daughter syndrome and asking her husband if he would still love her if she was a worm.
Yep.
What a great bio. I love bios where you've got that little bit of personal kind of comedy in there. It's brilliant. I'm sure he would still love you if you were still.
It depends how many times I've asked him the question. It gets less and less reassuring with every time.
Perhaps you should mix it up a bit. You should say, "Would you still love me if I was a chrysalis?"
Yeah. And then talk about what that would actually look like in practice.
Yeah. Don't let up on that. Don't let up. A true test of love, I think. Yeah. So, in your so thank you for joining me in the Coffee and Geography coffee house. So I've got my green tea with me. So what have you brought? What have you got with you in this conversation in terms of brews?
I do have my latte today, which I don't have coffee every day. I'm not someone who drinks coffee for the love of it, but really just because I need the energy. So I have a coffee today, and the beans I didn't think were that interesting. They're just Lavazza beans that I buy from the store. But I thought the milk was more interesting. I don't know if you've heard of this brand, Sprout. And it's actually milk. It's alternative milk, so it's pea milk from a pea plant. And I thought that was super weird. One of the great coffee shops in Riga, it's the only alternative milk that they had, and I'm lactose intolerant, so I was just like, okay, let's try it, and I have no other option. And I was expecting to hate it, but it's actually so good. I don't have to put sugar in my coffee with this milk because it's like the pea makes it a little bit sweeter. And then I'm not completely sure if it's accurate or if it's a bit of greenwashing, but it says that it has a lower climate impact. I haven't looked into that, so I do have to check. I can't confirm, but yeah, it's been a shock and I don't know, I haven't heard of anyone else who drinks it either. Whenever I tell someone, they're like, peas, like that's, it sounds like that's disgusting to make milk out of that, but it's surprisingly good.
So, okay, right. So there you go, listeners. That's a first for the Coffee and Geography podcast, folks. We've got coffees, we've got teas, we've got other kind of brews, but for milk or milk alternatives, that's great. We're diversifying.
Yeah.
I'll check. Yeah, with me and my oat milk, I think I don't know. I'm not lactose intolerant, but I've done it for both the environmental reasons and also just the really mostly. And I've turned to oat milk, and we get oat milk in the bottle from our milk.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
yeah, or through refill bottles. And I've never had sugar in my tea, never.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't put sugar on my cereal or anything like that. But yeah, it's kind of like that natural sweetness of it. And I haven't really, I must admit, I haven't really looked into whether they add extra sugar and stuff like that. But the natural sugars.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So at risk of going off on milk and milk alternatives, you have such a fascinating geographical journey through your life.
It's a bit much. It's a bit too much moving around, and I'm trying to slow it all down right now.
Really? Yeah. I mean, half Persian, half white American, grew up in the Mariana Islands, moved to Czechia, and now in Latvia.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No. So this is going to be, you knew this was coming, but this is going to be a really big question for you. But
okay.
I mean, it is an impossible question, but let's see where it goes. Yeah.
Okay.
So Nava, in terms of your identity, how is geography the places that you've been to? So for you today, what do you feel has made you the person you are today in terms of the places that you've experienced? And I know you've got a lot of strong affinity for the Pacific. And I know that's a very strong part of your identity, so you may want to start with that. But you know, from wherever you've been, who are you today?
Yeah, no, I do think that I was born and raised in the Mariana Islands. Most people haven't heard of it, but people have heard of the Marianas Trench. And so I'm from the group of islands that is right by that trench. It's about 3 hours south of Japan, and it's a US territory. And that definitely is, when I look at kind of the priorities that I have today, the things that are important to me, also thinking about, starting to raise kids, the kind of childhood I want my kids to have is the kind of childhood that I had, just surrounded by nature and things like that. So it definitely, growing up there is one of the things that shaped me and who I am today so strongly. I was there till I was 15. So it's really where I spent my childhood. And it's funny, actually, my youngest brother, he's 6 years younger than me. And just about a year ago, he was like, "Oh my God, you were there till you were 15." And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "So you're like from there." Like we moved when he was maybe 9. So for him, his identity is not so strongly tied to the Pacific and to the Marianas. And he's more of a European child, but he just realized, "Oh, for you, you're really from there," which was just so funny. Sometimes with siblings, you have completely different experiences and you don't realize how different they are. But yeah, as you're scrolling through all those photos, it's really just beautiful, still quite untouched. And really, we don't have malls. We don't really have places to go shopping for clothing. So the only thing that you do is really related to nature, and especially to the ocean.
Yeah. It looks very idyllic. It looks, I mean, from someone, I guess from my perspective, who's only ever lived in the United Kingdom, the east of England, and, kind of towards London, this looks like your quintessential stereotypical paradise.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is white sand beaches and clear water and snorkeling. And we do, our main economy, it's not doing so great now, but it is tourism. So when you think of those places you want to escape to, this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And those of you folks who are watching, not just listening right now, geographical quiz, what is the name of that feature? I bet all these geographers are now shouting at the screen, that's a tombola, it's a tombola. Okay, yeah, so there you go. You can actually, there you go, stick that in your lessons, folks. But yeah, that must be a hotel. Yes, it is. Kensington Hotel, Saipan, yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, that looks like one of the biggest buildings in the town.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and that I'm guessing that's another.
Yeah, is
that another hotel as well?
Another hotel. Yeah, that's actually my parents got married at the hotel. So a lot of big moments.
Yeah.
For us there.
Well, there you go. Well, that just demonstrates exactly what you've been saying. I mean, some of the biggest buildings I mean, look at that, folks. If that doesn't say
Yeah,
tourist all over it, you know,
water
it's
park.
your hotel, you got water park with tubing and stuff like that. So all of these photos, I mean, okay, fine. This is a very biased, this is a very, very biased thing. I'm using Google Maps, right? So of course the people who are taking
Yeah.
these photos are all mostly going to be tourists, but
Exactly.
it also already demonstrates, you know, the fact that there is a lot of infrastructure booted around tourism there. But there's some of the last Japanese command post. There's a lot of history as well.
There is a lot of history. So a lot of World War II was fought on Saipan. And we have on all there's 3 inhabited islands of the Mariana Islands, but a lot of it took place on Saipan, which is where I grew up. And it's the biggest of the 3 islands in terms of population. So for a while, it was German territory, Spanish. Of course, now it's American, Japanese for a while as well. So there's a lot of different history, and you know, a lot of it very tragic as well, because the indigenous people were there, and then these other, you know, countries came in and did certain things and put them in camps, and so a lot of it is very, very heavy, but it has become such a melting pot today, I think, also because of that history.
Yeah. In fact, I think this is, and I think this, and please forgive me if I'm misinterpret this, but I think what seems to me that's also informed your identity today is kind of like the fact that you embedded yourself so much in the community while you were there at a very young age. And I thought this is a really good time to kind of a pivot to that, because you were part of a group, and I'm just trying to find out, called Beautify CNMI.
CNMI,
and you won an award. Yeah, and you won an award at 9 years of age. So
yes.
So if you bring that into us, kind of like let's kind of segue, kind of like, okay, so about the indigenous community, working within the community, this melting pot of people getting together and making sure that the island is continues with its nature, with its tradition, you know, with its original traditions. Yeah, tell us a bit about that while I get this on the screen.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't tell you the exact number, but the population of the island is majority the indigenous populations. There are 2 groups. One are the Chamorros, which are indigenous to the Mariana Islands. And then there's also the Carolinians, who came quite a while ago. There was a group that came from the Caroline Islands. So those are the 2 main indigenous groups there. And it is majority indigenous, but there are a lot of people from all over Asia that come, a small amount of Americans, because it is U.S. territory and you can just move there. But you don't really feel like there's a separation. You know, everyone intermixes. Like, all of my friends growing up were half something, half the other, because, you know, their parents had both come and met there, or someone that was Chamorro had married someone that was Japanese. So it really...
I'm just looking at this picture here, you know, on their Facebook group, the Saipan writers. I mean, look at that mix of people.
Exactly. So there's really people from all over the Philippines, Bangladesh, all the East Asian countries. And yeah, so you, I think, really feel like you're part of something. And also just the fact that you're on this tiny island. It's 6 by 12 miles, 10 by 20 kilometers, you know, in the middle of the ocean. The only way to go somewhere else is to get on a plane. When I was a child, 60,000 people was the population. So I think also the fact that you know that you're all isolated together really helps form and create community.
Okay.
You know, you can't drive to another town or go on a road trip, and you're, you know, the borders of the island are where you can go, and it is quite small. So so as a young child, it's funny because I did not plan to go into climate and environment, and my master's degree was not in anything related to that. And it took me a while to realize, oh, this is what I have had a passion for since I was a child. I think I kind of forgot it for a while. But when I was young, there was an organization called Beautify CNMI, and CNMI stands for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And they organized a lot of different environmental efforts, cleanups and picking up trash on the beach, and kind of restoring some areas and buildings and things like that. And where I lived, there was a lighthouse that has been there quite a while, and it was abandoned. And so, you know, people would go there. There was so much trash, and it just became somewhere where there were, you know, beer bottles and graffiti on the walls. And it was like a 5-minute walk from my house. So I was always by it and wanted to do something about it. And my dad was friends with the founder, Angelo Villagomez, and mentioned, you know, my daughter, I don't remember this, but I think sold like cookies or lemonade outside my house to raise money to repaint this lighthouse. And so my dad told him, you know, my daughter raised like $100 to help with this lighthouse. You guys, you got to do something, you know, like someone's already started working on it. And so I think he felt bad, like, oh my gosh, this child is working on these things and I can't let her down. So we've got to do something. We've got to organize something. We can't let all her work be for nothing. So that was kind of, I think, my first big initiation and effort of something climate related. And if you're watching, you can see the before and after pictures. There really was a lot done. And just seeing the difference that you can make. And it was not a small group. It was a small group that did the cleanup. So just, you know, with a small amount of people, the difference and the change you can make, I think was really powerful, especially at a young age like that.
Yeah. I mean, I had a read of this a bit earlier, and it's just for me, I just felt yet again, it's just another example of, you know, collective spirit making big changes. And people might turn around and say, oh, it's just a lighthouse, it's an old building and stuff like that. But no, it means something. It's an icon. It's part of the landscape. It was exactly, you know, built for a purpose of its time. And, you know, local, you know, the people who worked that lighthouse, kept the ships safe, and all that kind of stuff were integral parts of the community. There's history and stories behind these things. And to have a like what you've described, the collective group of people of so many different cultures, backgrounds, ways of life coming together to kind of work on projects like this, it's very inspirational. And I love listening to stories like this because they are very common, more common than people realize. And that's what all should bring us hope, really, that, you know, not just hope that these things are happening, but hopefully motivation, inspiration that we can do something similar ourselves in our own neighborhoods.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think also, you know, the power of community, like you can go and I think a lot of us have gone, we see, you know, trash in a park or on a beach, and we just decide, okay, I'm going to bring a trash bag and I'm going to pick up the trash and do my part. Yeah. But that's a lot. And that is also, you know, great. But there's a lot of different emotions and power that come with doing it in community as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is why I kind of like, when we had our initial chat beforehand, you know, more business-like, if you like, I think I remember saying to you at that point there, you know, that it's so great that to have these discussions where everything is connecting together, and because this community can be on the ground in person at a location, you know, like here, or it could be, you know, thanks to technology, you know, a global community connected by a same common cause. And the work that I do, you know, with climate ambassadors and climate research and climate education, but then we're also working in connecting people with similar aims. It's just been so uplifting. And in despite the fact that everything is just, you know, seems to be falling apart and running away, it gives me hope that we've got this adaptation and resilience in us that we're going to get through this, you know, no matter how bad it gets.
Yeah, I was just actually kind of along that vein. Our organization, we were just accepted to be part of the European Climate Pact a few months ago. And I just got back.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I just got back from the annual event that was in Brussels. And on one of the panels, someone was saying, you know, that, and it helped frame it a lot for me, because a lot of times we feel like, is the world just going to end in a dumpster fire? Is anything that we're doing going to make a difference? It seems so insurmountable so much of the time. And someone on a panel said, you know, the climate change and the climate crisis is this generation's big problem, right? And previous generations have also had big problems, like world wars and civil wars and plagues. And they all also thought it was insurmountable. But here we are today right? And we've overcome those things. And it kind of helped frame, like, we do have a history as humanity. We don't do a great job a lot of the time, but we do overcome and we do make progress. And then we encounter new problems to solve. And so exactly, you know, what you were saying, just reminding ourselves that this is our big problem. And I do believe that we can tackle it. And the next generation will have another problem, you know, more in line with that time. And we'll just keep going, I guess, until we get hopefully 100%. Quite close to things being really calm.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's funny you actually, that insight's really interesting, because I've only just finished reading a book which was strongly recommended to me. It's a young adult book called The Great Transition. I've forgotten the author's name now. It's something Googins. He's actually a primary school teacher in America who wrote this book, and it is absolutely fascinating. Basically, the world has gone to hell, and it's just about been bought. Well, it's gone past the brink, but it's now going like almost a renaissance called the Great Transition, where people have taken over and started to, you know, really push through more sustainable living and things like that. But it's still not a perfect world. There's still undercurrents of like power structures trying to, and all this kind. It's a really fascinating book. And what really interests me when I read that, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, folks, but it actually seems exceptionally realistic to me that, like, for example, in the book, New York, you know, half of New York is underwater. You know, there's parts of it's set, of course, most of these things is set in Greenland and the United States, which is really interesting. You know, a lot of the United States is completely unlivable now, and all that kind of stuff. However, you've got these groups who, you know, of humanity who have basically humanity got together and thought, no, we got to do something about this. And so you've got people who go, a part of the Great Transition, go out and they volunteer and they do things like forest reclamation, fixing wind turbines, building seawalls, you know, from on a volunteering basis, and they get like housing and stuff like that. And I just thinking that's probably still sounds a bit dark. It's not a dystopia. It's it
could happen is the thing, right?
Yeah. Climate literature either seems to be a utopian ending, we fixed it, yay, or a dystopian future where everything's gone. This book really walks the middle very, very well. It's like it's neither a utopia or a dystopia, and I just feel it gives me hope that there's life after this.
Right. That even if we do kind of end in a disaster, that it doesn't at the same time mean that we could come back from those things as well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's what we've got to fight for. We've got to fight for the chance for everybody to be there.
Right.
After the worst has happened.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, and
that does sound interesting. I'm gonna look this book up after after we finish.
Yeah. I mean, I've only like last night. I just finished the last chapter last night. Yeah. Right. So again, naturally pivoting then. So you were talking about. So congratulations on getting part of that EU Climate Action Pact. That's absolutely fantastic. And this is the reason why, because of something that you're leading at the Climate Education Centre. And this is a perfect time now to let everybody know what this is, because this is absolutely fabulous. And this was the reason why you contacted me in the first place. So talk us about the Climate Education Centre.
Of course. So it was founded about 1.5 years ago now. And actually my mom and I co-founded it together. So I had finished my master's. I, for a couple of years, was doing some work, some related more to human rights, some related more to climate, but none of them were very stable jobs, or they were kind of internships that it didn't seem like there was an opportunity to really have something long-term in that area. And at the same time, my mom, she has done a lot. She and my dad founded a Montessori school. They love to remind me that it was for me, because they weren't happy with the education options when I was, like 1 year old. And so they founded a Montessori school on the island, which is actually still running, even though they've stepped away from it. And then, so for a while, she was the principal of that school. Of course, both my parents were on the board of that. And then when we moved to the Czech Republic, she started teaching. And she taught among a few subjects, but one of them was environmental studies and civics. But she had decided during COVID to retire from teaching but she was like, I'm too young to fully retire. And she's like me, we just go like crazy and bored out of our minds when we have nothing to do. We're not the stay at home, retire kind of people. So we kind of were both in these transition periods and both figuring out what to do. And one day actually she messaged me and she said, Nava, like I just had an epiphany. I was on a plane and I was really kind of in this, I guess, kind of like a meditative space where you're, like asking the universe for guidance and what to do. And she said, all of a sudden I just had this idea. You want to work in the climate and environment space. I still want to stay in education. Why don't we create curriculum? And I actually was not so psyched about it when she first brought it up, because education was never a space that I really wanted to work in or found interesting for me. So I was, my poor mom, I was kind of like, oh, we can talk about it, let's see. It didn't spark anything right away. But as we continued talking about it, we both realized, one, that it did sound interesting, but two, there was also a big gap, because a lot of climate education that exists right now is only focused on the science, which is of course important. Yes. But we also need to incorporate so many other things, things like indigenous ways of knowing that have been around thousands of years, that so many of those practices are solutions to issues that we have today and need to be valued on an equal level that we value science. Also, when she was teaching her environmental studies class, she said, just so many young people are so depressed about this and they have no hope. So we wanted to create something where we were, giving kind of, you were talking about this, like giving stories of positive things that are happening and things that we are doing right, instead of just, we're continually, encountering all these disasters. So that is how it came to be. And we're now at the end of developing our first module, which is centered on climate justice. And as well, we wanted to create something that wasn't kind of the education system is in dire need of reform. So we didn't want to create kind of and everyone I think that works in education knows, but it's so hard to change something that has been one way for so long. So it's not kind of a textbook style. It's, got activities, it's got projects. We wanted to incorporate like music and art and film. So I'm sure we'll have to make, changes and continue to improve it. But we really just wanted to do it the way that it's needed and try not to conform with how education exists right now.
It's a breath of fresh air, and like what you said, like what we were saying earlier, it is an example of the desire as well as a shift towards what is needed. So examples that come to mind, for instance, are the Morecambe Bay curriculum here in the United Kingdom, which is a lot more place-based, which local schools in that area are signing up to, and it's all about community and sustainability and things like that. But it still has to it still has to map itself to the national curriculum. And that we know is a bit of a barrier. And then we've just had the curriculum assessment review here in England and Wales, this is I wouldn't say it's a controversial opinion. People who know me know I speak my mind, and I have very high expectations of things like the Department for Education. But whereas there is lots of mention of climate change in there, lots of mention of being a bit more specific about having a more broader view of it. For me, it was still inadequate of what's needed, because everything you just described, what you're trying to achieve with this, is, in my opinion, the absolute minimum that climate education should be. And that was completely missing from the curriculum assessment review. I don't think it went far enough. And I'm always the kind of person who unless they rewrite the national curriculum completely to be climate literate in exactly the way people like me, myself and you, and the vast majority of people listening to this probably want, I'm always going to say it's inadequate because it underpins everything. It's intersectional. It's climate change for me is the Earth having a fever. It's a bit what James Lovelock's Gaia theory, the way he describes environmental degradation and climate change. It's like the Earth having a fever and trying to, make itself feel better. And so unless you enable us to understand what's going on through a climate literate lens, everything else that you're trying to learn is not going to be impactful, or is not going to be sustainable in itself, because the Earth is sick. Right.
Yep.
So and as I say, and the fact that you've got things like to do with art, with music, we'll come back to music later. Don't make me think you're going to get away with that. Just a little tease for everyone else. But yeah, the fact that you said art and music and stuff like that, and it doesn't have to be depressing. We're not talking about, folks, like every art lesson has got to be a climate version of the Scream or whatever it's called. Every music climate lesson has got to be like some dark and dank, like scary music and stuff. No. In fact, art could be a celebration of what we can do. It could be an expression of emotion that we're all keeping inside and trapping outside of ourselves. Music could be a similar way of that. DT, the engineering that can engineer the next solution or to enhance an existing solution. It could be joyful, and I've just got it up on the screen here. You've got your values of justice, empathy, and interconnection. What your youth series and this curriculum kind of offers, and for me, it's a no-brainer. So what are your hopes now going forward with this? So I've been, you've got folks like me who are aware of this, trying to push it and share it. So what's your I mean, you could be very ambitious in what you say now, but what would be your ideal situation going forward that this is influencing policy, education decisions, or getting into maybe international schools with their curriculum? I mean, what do you think?
I think, it's like you're saying, you can have a lot of ambition, and that's one hand, and the other hand is also what's realistic and possible at this point, and trying to merge those two things. And when we were in the beginning of starting this, just doing research and kind of networking and talking to people, something that I think about a lot that someone told us is you can't be everything to everyone, right? And that was kind of what I was wanting. You want to create something that, for example, I'm from the Pacific, and, as we know, that's one of the first places facing climate change, and really experiencing it so tragically. And I wanted to create something, for example, that could be in the schools on the island that I grew up in, and help, raise awareness of, we see it happening, but sometimes there's a disconnect of, we have more and more typhoons and they're stronger and stronger, but what are the things that are all underlying that, and what can we do, and what do we need to be aware of? And also, how can we empower ourselves? How can we make sure that as disasters do start to ramp up, that we are ready and we know what to do? And that is kind of what drives me to do it. The most special thing for me would be to be able to contribute to those conversations and those improvements back home. But at the same time, you want, for example, our curriculum is for kids between 14 and 18, roughly. So not the youngest ages, but I think in a time where youth starts to think about these problems and ask questions about it, and ask, what can I do, and what's my place in the world, and what does my future look like? We wanted to kind of give them these tools. And so at the same time, having youth in, more developed countries have this material and think about this is, in a way, maybe even more crucial, because it is those people and those countries that are the reason that the climate crisis is happening, right? Like, it's not the Pacific Islands, the reason that we have all these emissions and things rising. So I think at the moment, we are, because we're starting with the curriculum in English, I think international schools are a great place. And I was talking to someone about this a few days ago. You want everyone to benefit from something. At the same time, maybe there is a plus from starting with international schools. A lot of times those kids are in more privileged positions, and maybe the people that are more likely to be politicians and lawmakers and to have them have this grounding, maybe that it's okay that that's how it starts. So there's kind of a lot of, you can see back and forth in my head. You want everyone to have access. You don't want only, people in private schools to be able to learn these things, but there are benefits for it being in those spaces.
But yeah, those kind of institutions are disproportionately, in terms of the education sector, disproportionately contributors to the education sector's emissions, for instance. Yeah, and you're right. And I think even in, my work here in the UK, even within UK society and with global North societies, there's inequality in terms of emissions and like that as well. So this also kind of like gets people to think about the injustices, not just on a global scale, but even on a national or regional scale. Just thinking even the county of Norfolk, which I'm based in, there's huge disparities between communities and their most of the time unwitting contributions to environmental degradation. So yeah, it's such important work, and I don't envy you on the kind of the task that you got, but I guess a global problem, is going for. Sometimes you've got to think globally in that respect. Act globally, act locally, think globally. So I want to pivot to some questions here. We've got quite a few jog cues and brews, mostly thanks to your friends, colleagues, and in some cases family. So this is
I enlisted some people.
Right, you did indeed. So let's start with this one with Jennifer. So then so this links in basically the whole conversation we've had holistically so far, really. How has growing up in Saipan shaped the way you think about climate education compared to how it's taught in contexts like Europe and the US? I think you've kind of alluded a little bit already to what you've said already, but maybe kind of like continue on your thought through the framing of Jennifer's question there, perhaps? Yeah,
I did do my undergraduate degree in the US. I didn't do any other education there, so I'm not super familiar with how it's taught there, but from what I do know, I think, one thing that I was thinking about when I started doing this work was that growing up in the Pacific, you're not explicitly taught and told that we should respect the environment or this earth is our only home or anything like that. It wasn't actually part of everyday conversations, but the way that people live and the things that you saw every day, it was just, as you were saying, it's kind of a given, right? Like, oh, of course, like this is our one home and we shouldn't, on a smaller scale, we shouldn't litter. If we see something, pick it up. There's also with the Chamorro culture, there are also, for example, some beliefs of like spirits being in nature, right? There's one tree that we have, it's called the Tatamona tree. And the Chamorros believe that the souls of kind of deceased people are in those trees. So, for example, when we would go camping, none of them would camp under that tree because it's disrespectful to the spirits there. So it kind of tied in multiple things about the earth being, a living, breathing being. And that was just what was normal. And I think those conversations are definitely, really starting to take place now, definitely in Europe. The US is tricky because, every 4 years you could have a vastly different agenda and progress may not be as steady. Whereas in the EU, I feel like it is, we do have setbacks, but it is overall, I think, kind of moving and progressing. So I think also, there's vastly different contexts. There's rural communities in, of course, Europe and the US as well. But when you have an everyday interaction with nature, I think that informs education so much. So if you are living, like I live in the middle of the city now, and, sometimes I'll be like, when was the last time I saw a tree, or saw a tree that was growing out of the ground, not like in a box on the sidewalk. And so just having this everyday interaction with it, I think gives, it gives a child an awareness. And I think the awareness is the first thing. And I think it's the difference between. Yeah.
And there's a recent study survey of children from Natural England here, you know, clearly has concluded quite robustly with exceptionally high significance. 97% of children say they feel, you know, they benefit from nature, going outside in nature, and that they are exceptionally emotionally salient already. So that tells me that we're predisposed as human beings from a very young age of being connected to nature. And so that makes it so that's actually interesting. So rather than having it like explicitly in black and white on a curriculum policy or something like that, saying you will have so many hours of outdoor learning, blah 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 blah,
right,
then more of a case of, you know, being a bit more open with regards to it should be a given that learning should take place in outdoors rather than being prescriptive. Is probably what I'm thinking there, you know, and that makes total sense. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on. So the next question, you talked a little bit about, you know, obviously we don't want to go on this for too long because we could be here for another hour, but you know, we're already, you know, you mentioned the politics, you know, we got a lot of geopolitical conflicts taking stage in the news. And Lucas says, given this, how can climate change awareness still be fostered, especially with children? Well, I think kind of, you've already kind of mentioned a lot of this already, you know, like looking at solutions, community-based action and focusing on successes, but like being, I mean, rather than just saying climate change is happening, because you already said, like even in the Pacific and in the Marianas, you were saying, well, they don't have it in black and white in the curriculum there. Right. So I mean, what's your opinion on this one?
I think it's a great question. I think it depends on the age group. You know, with younger children, of course, this conflicts and war is not something that's on their radar. It's not something we teach them about because that's very scary for young children. And they're still just rooted in their everyday lives. So, you know, climate change awareness, you mentioned earlier, you know, for example, the first way now when we start talking about it, you know, a picture of the earth with a little thermometer, and you teach them that the earth is sick, and what small actions can we take to help the earth be healthier, because they're just grounded in their everyday lives. With older youth, let's say with teenagers or young adults, I think, you know, you mentioned in the beginning, I'm half Persian. A lot of the conflict that's happening now is very present for me. And I check the news, you know, I can't check it every day. It's just too much. But the few times a week that I look at it, that is the thing that's the headline, right? It's nothing about the climate and the environment. And I think for decent reason, you know, these are very scary times. And in the globalized world that we live in, these conflicts, even if they're just in one region, they have global effects. So we all, in a way, are affected by them. But I think tying it, and, you know, with this question, I'm kind of thinking, we're talking about fostering this with children who are not in these areas of conflict, I think. But, you know, geopolitical conflicts with the environment, it's like a double-edged sword, because you have all the resources that it takes to, for example, create weapons, and the emissions that you use with big ships or flying weapons across the globe, all these kinds of things. And then on
destruction
the other hand,
of infrastructure. Which
and then on the other hand, you have the impact of it, right? Which is the destruction of infrastructure, of land, maybe more oil into the ocean. So I think with teenagers and young adults, you can really tie these two things together. You know, like you were saying, everything is interconnected. And at that age, we can talk about them and talk about what values are underneath the reason for geopolitical conflicts and climate change. A lot of them are the same, you know, like a lack of respect for each other, for human life, not seeing ourselves as part of one human family where everything affects someone else on the opposite side of the globe. And we should care about what their life looks like as much as we care about what our life looks like. So, of course, those are conversations that are with an older age. But these two things are very interconnected, even though maybe in the news they are presented as separate. And
I just want to state absolutely now on the record for everybody that I have I mean, I'm a very empathetic person, so I kind of feel these things sometimes really, really deeply, even though I have the absolute privilege of at least at the moment, not being in a war zone, I just want to give my absolute thoughts and solidarity to everybody who's experiencing, all these things, the genocide in Palestine, the conflict in the Persian Peninsula and everything. So yes, and and of course, respect the fact that, thank you for asking that question, bearing in mind that it's very, very close to you, given your family connections. So we'll quickly do two more. So we'll quickly, this one is slightly kind of related, but this is more about the underlying spiritual principles. So Anis says, what are some of the underlying spiritual principles that can help foster a climate concern mindset in the younger generation?
I think I kind of started talking about this, but well, first of all, when I think spiritual principles, for me, it's really a synonym for virtues, right? And moral principles. So really the main thing in terms of creating concern and care is this idea that we're all part of one human family, and I think I go back to that so much, because if we believe that, then we will care that, people in Kiribati are having to leave their ancestral homeland because the sea levels are rising. We will care that people are having to migrate, from all these different areas. We'll care that people live in a war zone. It extends beyond climate as well. But for me, that's like the main principle. And also kind of the idea, it's not a spiritual principle, but where we are born and where we grow up is completely random, right? And so recognizing that we don't have a right to a safe life more than someone else on the other side of the globe, on a small island, or in a rural African town. So it's I think just about recognizing that we're all one.
And that is such a great way that you've put that, because a lot of people get their backs up and bristle when they hear things like, checking your privilege and all that kind of stuff. Yep. I think that's a really, really, really fantastic way of putting it. It's like, look, if, where you're born, how you're born, the circumstances that you're born really are a roll of a dice, And so, privilege is all about understanding that once that dice has been rolled and you're now been born, the dice that's then given to you afterwards where you're born is now weighted.
Right.
So that is a fantastic perspective. Thank you for sharing that. That's going to give me some food for thought. The last one then, apparently this is from a cousin of yours. So Dr. Mona. Hello, Dr. Mona. Hearing lovely things about the family. So how do you see young people tangibly driving climate resilience? So this is our last question.
This is, I think young people at the moment are the main demographic driving climate resilience and climate action in so many different places. Because my context is the Pacific, there are two, maybe I can share really special things that have happened recently. One, if you work in the climate environment space, probably know, but there was a recent, ICJ ruling, and that said, everyone basically has the right to things that should be common sense, right? To have a healthy life, to not have to leave your home because of climate change, all these kinds of things. But this case, this is the world's highest court, and was brought by a group of Pacific Island students, university students. And one of the law firms that actually represented the students is from Guam, which is part of the Mariana Islands. It's a separate political entity, but it's the same indigenous population. It's all part of the Marianas. And this was, it's a groundbreaking case, and it was brought by university students who wanted their voices to be heard and that had something to say. And has been so special for me to watch all of this play out and see everything that they're doing. And, in a way, part of the reason this is so powerful is because in the Pacific, it sounds depressing, but it's like you realize at some point that no one is coming to save you, right? So if something is important, you better start working on it and stand up and put the pedal to the metal, because this is a region that is quite neglected. So the fact that they were able to accomplish so much with so few resources is just so astounding, and it makes me so proud and so happy. And this is like on a huge scale, right? This is a global case. Another example from the Pacific that I was just reading about is some students, and these students I believe are more high school age, in Hawaii, who also through the legal system brought up action in order to limit certain regulations related to transportation in order to reduce emissions and try. That was more a focus for Hawaii and the impacts that they are seeing there locally. But again, just a group of teenagers who saw in their everyday lives what was happening and decided that they wanted to do something, and then, you know, got support from other local organizations and through the court system got things passed. And also, of course, usually have other initiatives outside of that as well, not just helping get a law passed. So yeah, these are two things that are so special for me. But I think all over the world, when we look at a lot of climate action, so much of it is being driven by young people. And I think it's because we don't maybe have the bias of previous generations of thinking that things are, you know, when you only grow up kind of seeing things start to fall apart, that's your only context. And so I think that, and also just the reason that young people are going to be here longer, right? We've got maybe 80 or 60 years of life ahead of us as opposed to 20 or 30. So we will bear the brunt of the consequences, and we don't want to have to deal with that. And so it's so much, I think, can be more personal. But yeah, I think young people are doing an incredible job. They shouldn't have to be doing as much work as they are doing, but I think they're really, I'm so proud of everyone that's doing something like that.
That's very well articulated. Yeah. And I've been increasingly mindful, especially since, well, my latter years of teaching high school and definitely now today, of being careful with my language, you know, around children, because not profanity or anything like that, but in terms of how I talk about climate change and say things about, you know, you young people, even saying, you know, you young people inspire me with all these things that I'm doing. It's like, but also caveating that with, you know, we need to do more. I'm talking about my generation and above, need to be doing more to kind of make sure that you're enabled and you feel like this is all worth it, because this is not your fault. And you know, and then saying to children, especially when I'm working in areas of deprivation, is like asking them what could they do and what they'd be willing to do rather than what they should be doing, because those two words mean very different. If you change an action from could to should or should to could, it makes a big difference. And one thing that, and just very quickly before we move on, one thing I like to do when I work with young people is I've got the climate stripes on a banner that I can roll out. So what I do is that I ask them, so what year were you born? And like they age me by saying like, you know, 2012 or 2017 or something like that.
And I was like, you should be walking around with a pacifier in your mouth. How are you here having a conversation with me?
Everyone looks young. As you get older, everyone starts looking much younger. So what I then do is then I unroll the climate stripes from the current year. So in this case, the most recent one is 2025. I just unroll it to their year, and so they can see that it's just basically all red. And then that's the kind of saying, you know, this is all you've known. This is your world. Right. You know, the 40-degree heat wave in the United Kingdom in 2022. That's normal. You know, that's normal for you, or is continually normal for you. Blah blah blah. Yeah. And then I unroll it further to like me. You know, born in the 1980s. I say, but the world wasn't always like this. Yeah. You know, and you can start seeing some blues and stuff like that. And then when I say, right, what about our grandparents? And then and then I think that helps them to contextualize that what they're living through is not normal. Right. And then how do they feel about that? So then we talk about, because they already feel something about climate change. Right. And so I use things like tools like the climate emotions wheel, and we try to identify that. And the best sessions I've done have been the ones when both the teachers or the parents are in the room as well. And then there's this intergenerational discussions, and it is, and people say, Kit, doing that kind of stuff, aren't you scaring the living daylights out of these kids? I'm like, actually, no, they're already feeling the emotions that they feel.
Yeah.
What's the fear comes from the fact they don't understand or can't articulate it.
Right.
And feel powerless.
Right.
So I do that activity along with it. Exactly. And I haven't yet come across, having done this about half a dozen times, maybe a little bit more, anybody come back to me and saying, oh, you've caused someone distress, and quite the opposite, actually.
Right.
Which is, and that's that, because they, as I already mentioned before, they already have that emotional salience. So
that's a super interesting activity. I'll
we'll talk about it.
I really love that.
We'll talk about that. Like, oh, okay, we've got some more ideas. Anyway, right. So there's what was two more things to do. One thing we'll be very. You've got a way of not being too detailed on this, right? So we'll bring it to the quick spilling of the beans, which is you actually went to the Berklee College of Music to pursue songwriting, and actually took a year off after high school to study music theory.
Yeah.
But this is not something that you want to do right now, but you still enjoy writing songs. Having a music career is always on the back of your mind as something you'd like to experience someday. So if you ever get that far, are you going to, can I be the first person who can get maybe like backstage VIP tickets to your first concert?
We'll have you up on stage, do a little dance together, like Zara Larsson style.
Okay, you're on. So go on. All right, well, let's just spend a couple of minutes then. So if you were to have a music career, then and I know you'd probably do like your climate messaging through that and stuff like that. I can see that all happen, stuff like that. But what kind of music style is it? Is it poppy? Is it jazz? Is it a little bit more?
I think my dad, the music that he played when we were growing up is really kind of like the main influence that I've always had. And he played a lot of Bruce Springsteen, John Prine, kind of these like classic American music influences. And really all of the music that he played, it was not about, a lot of them weren't really love songs, which today I feel like that's a huge amount of the music that, at least in mainstream music, exists. But it was all about the human condition and things that we crave for as humans. And when I write music, these are the things that I'm interested in telling stories about, right? The desires we have, or the nostalgia that we have of our childhood, whether it's good or bad. A lot of it is seeing how much things have changed in Saipan since I was young.
Bob Dylan, like?
Bob Dylan, like exactly. Yeah, people like that. And so, walking through like what it is to be human and the experiences that we all have. And I don't know, in terms of the style, I think the things I've written are maybe like indie pop. And that's also a lot of what I listen to.
Okay. Yeah. That was my childhood as well. I loved a little bit of pop, like Goo Goo Dolls and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I just write still like as a hobby and as an outlet, and I have fun doing it. But at the same time, because I started going to school for it and it was something that I was pursuing, I have this level of perfectionism that is like really, it like I'll sit down, like this is my piano behind me. I'll sit down at the piano, I'll start writing a song, and then I'll get stuck and I feel like something's not good enough. And then I'll just like get mad and I'll leave it. So it's tricky because it is a hobby, but I expect too much of myself for something to be perfect at a first go. So that's something that's like one of my character flaws that I need to work on.
I feel you. I'm the same with my poetry. I mean, I taught drama as well and did a bit of drama, and I do performance poetry, but now I'm like, it's a hobby. It's a hobby. It's a way of you expressing yourself. And I do a lot of my the kind of like teach meets, like small little snippets of
that's cool.
The traditional teach meet is usually, here's 5 minutes of what I do in the classroom or something I found out or a resource or something like that. Whereas me, I do poetry. So
that's really cool.
And I'm like, and I feel it. It's like, what are they going to like? It doesn't really quite say. Just do it, Kit. It's for fun. But it's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard to just go.
It's like you want to create it for, like, for example, that the world would love it. But you're like, I'm writing this for myself. I send it to a few friends. Like, it doesn't have to be some Grammy award, Grammy winning material.
Well, you can sign me up to be your biggest fan, and I haven't even heard anything yet. So there you go. You got one prospective fan.
Well, we'll have to organize like part poetry night, part music.
Ooh, a
night,
mashup. Ooh.
Like the arts kind of what is it called? Not a display, but yeah, an arts night where everyone shows.
Oh,
their
I'm
stuff.
loving this. I'm loving this. Right, you can hold me to that. Right, we'll bring this fantastic, amazing discussion to a close now. Thank you again so much. We're recording this on a Saturday, by the way. If which is when the podcast gets released on Saturday. I don't know why. It's just the way I do it. But thank you so much for giving up your weekend. I want to connect you now to the previous guest that I spoke to, which is Aparna Bamzai, who works for the USGS, doing a lot of work actually with the community and climate justice stuff. That was absolutely fantastic. And this is a really nice word to end on, Nava, right? So she wants you to talk for 30 seconds about the word joy. How nice is that? So whenever you're ready, just riff on the word joy for 30 seconds. And
is it related to climate or completely?
Anywhere you like. You like. Just riff. Like you're jamming on your piano. Actually, no, I'm just kidding.
No pressure, but just joy for make a song for us right now.
No, just so anything you like on the word joy for 30 seconds.
Joy. I think it's so important in times like these when exactly like we were talking about, there's so much going on. One thing that I find joy in now is really connecting with my Persian culture and Persian heritage. It was just Persian New Year and I hosted my first Persian New Year party. And I think finding people that you have the same values with, like in the climate space, finding people that you want to work towards something together, it brings so much joy. And also I think after COVID, being in a community with people is so important to get back into. There we go. That's what I think about joy.
Love it. And I love the fact, you got you're talking about joy through identity as well, and that shared kind of community. That's so lovely. Oh, what would you like? So the next person I speak to, what would you like to get them to talk about for 30 seconds? Yeah.
Ooh, and what's the range of words? Really anything? Or should I be kind to them?
Oh no, you go for it, because the joy is in the connection. So.
Okay. What about it's a word that I was kind of thinking about in the context of history, which we won't tell them, or hopefully they won't watch this before they have their interview. But maybe the word blip.
Blip.
BLIP. Yep.
I've got my right. Sorry. I'll show this to you in a minute. It's a little message from my youngster. He basically says, "Are you nearly done? Right here, right this on there." Bless him. And because I was looking at him, he was just down there on the floor, and because you said blip, I was thinking, oh, he's probably going to be thinking of the Avengers. But yeah, okay. So we're gonna go for blip, folks. Get Kai to talk about blip for 30 seconds from the Avengers. Well. That's great. We'll do that next time. So blip is the word we're going to do. So folks, This was an amazing chat. Fantastic questions as well. Please make sure, folks, that you put your questions with the hashtag JogQ over a brew for the future. And also, where can we find you on social media? I believe you're on LinkedIn.
I do have LinkedIn, so you can share that. I've actually deleted all my other social media at the moment, like Instagram and Facebook. I just needed to touch grass and kind of just be rooted in my everyday life. So LinkedIn is the main thing. And then also our website, climateeducation.org, for our work. And there's just one E, so it's in between climate and education. So climate education. And yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Oh, this has been amazing. And again, thank you so much for, all right. I didn't twist your arm. You're very kind about that. But just such a lovely way to spend a Saturday, and getting to know you a little bit more. And thank you for sharing.
Of course.
as well. It's been an absolute pleasure, Nava. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I had the best time. This is like, I don't know if anything will beat this, my first podcast experience. It might be all downhill from here because this was just so easy and comfortable. And you made it such a relaxed process as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Coffee and Geography. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and leave us a rating or review. It really helps. Some episodes are also available with video, so don't forget to check out the Geogrambling's YouTube channel for more. Stay in the loop by following us and using hashtag CoffeeJogPod on Blue Sky and LinkedIn. That's hashtag CoffeeJogPod, where we share updates on new episodes and upcoming guests. Got a question for a guest? Post it on LinkedIn or Blue Sky using hashtag JogQ Yes, hashtag JogQ and we might just feature it on the show. Keep exploring, keep connecting, and as always, keep geogging.